Well, hey there, it's Monday and time for Monday Mastery. I'm author and dating coach Rick Soderbeer. I'm your dating disruptor. I'm here to disrupt your dating life and get you to look at dating in a different light, in a different perspective. So anyway, I hope everyone had a great week last week and a wonderful weekend. And it looks like, don't know where you are, but we're starting off with some beautiful weather for the 4th of July, the week before 4th of July. And it's just gorgeous up here. Hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And, excuse me, it's been a hectic few days. I've been in search of a virtual assistant, and I think I've got that position filled as of today. But it was a really time-consuming process because I had over 200 applications that I went through in a single day, and then reached out and scheduled interviews, and so it's been interesting. It's the first time I've ever had hired a virtual assistant, so we'll see how this works out. So anyway, again, I hope you all had a great weekend and are getting ready for an awesome week. And today's topic, it just kind of came out of the blue to me. It's something we really haven't talked about all that much in the last couple of years, and that's about how your children handle your dating. Or it could be friends and family too. And one of the things that hey Teresa, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. One of the things that can happen is, and it depends on the age of the children and the situation in the household, but kids can either help make or break a relationship. And it's one of those things. It's a topic that needs to be addressed with kids, and it's there are a lot of different aspects, and if you have younger kids at home, it's one of those things that you need to be able to have age appropriate conversations with them. They have a lot of fears and possibly a lot of anxiety as you start dating, because they've lost one parent, whether it's due to divorce or death. Maybe your spouse passed away, and they worry about losing time with you. Their time with you is precious, and when they've lost one parent, they look to you to maintain that relationship and closeness, and they can fear, and it may be rational, it may be irrational, and but they don't want to lose time with you. Your time with them is precious, and they don't want to lose another parent to somebody else. So those are some things to think about. Now, as children get older, they can start to think of the situation as, and depending on their connection with hey Terry, thanks for joining in, glad you're here. They may look at the situation as especially if you're a widow or widower, that you're being disrespectful to their mother or to their dad, and so there can be a lot of negative pressure there. And again, with older kids, you need to be able to have an age-appropriate conversation with them, and you need to share that, because they don't understand that you have wants and needs and desires either, and it's, you have to be able to share your wants, needs, and desires, and at an age-appropriate level. It's some conversations need to be more tender, and the older they get, they can be a little more direct, because they don't understand your wants, needs, and desires, like I said, and they long for the original household. They long for all of the connections that that they started out with. And unfortunately, as we get divorced, as we become widowed, it becomes difficult to sometimes to try to maintain those connections. And Teresa says, I think it would be easier with way younger kids. My kids are all adults. Uh, 6 are sons, two are girls. It's hard. It is, and a lot of issues arise uh, when children don't know or are fed inaccurate information by the other spouse. So many times I hear how one spouse berates the other, and it puts great pressure on the kids, because the kids start to be pressured or to be influenced by one side, and it can create a significant issue. And Teresa says, I want them to like whoever, but I know they will judge. And yes, they will judge. But if you're being responsible and being inclusive, and when I say inclusive, not including them on the dates, but including them on your plans, and being upfront with them on what's going on, then they may come around, and it may take time. I know when I got divorced, my daughter had blamed me for the divorce. I know it was because of things my ex said to her, and it for more than 10 years, my daughter never knew that I dated. And it wasn't until a recent relationship that she actually knew that I was dating somebody. And so, and Terry says, I have a friend that stresses out when I go on a date, because she thinks I'm going to fall in love and leave her behind with nobody to do things with. Now that's that can be a lot of pressure on you, Terry. But you also have to assure her, and friends and other family, we have to assure them that they're still going to remain our friends, that we're still going to be inclusive, or they're going to be included in that in your life as you go forward. You can still have girl time with her. It's just that it may not be as much girl time. And Nancy says, we have great kids, but they didn't handle my dating very well, even 12 years after their father's death. And that's exactly what I was saying. Hey, Shar, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is they can feel it as if you're disrespecting their father, and again, it's age appropriate conversations, and it's not going to be, it's odds are it's not going to be just one conversation. It's something that will have to be talked over multiple times in order for them to understand where you're coming from. And then you also have to understand where they're coming from, and what their concerns are. And Teresa says, how do you handle the ex asking kids about the other parent dating? I don't want my kids in the middle. And you have to be very, very upfront with the kids and say, listen, it's none of your dad's business. If you're going to, and this is just an off the cuff, but if you're going to run and tell dad about what I'm doing and where I'm going and who I'm with, then I just won't include you in what I'm doing. And I don't want that to be the case, but if I can't have a life, if I can't develop my own circle of friends, and and move forward with my life, then he's still got his claws in me, and being continuing to be abusive in that concern. Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining in. And hey, Rod, thanks for being here. Shar says my kids are incredibly supportive, even through my stumbles and bumbles. They give me time and space to figure it out. They may suggest or ask questions, but they don't judge. They don't judge me. I am sure the discuss mom amongst themselves. Or I'm sure they discuss mom amongst themselves, but they don't try to guide my life. That's awesome, and if they've got concerns, then obviously they should air them, because a lot of times when we start dating somebody, we get excited and infatuation takes over and puts the blinders on, and we don't necessarily see the things that they see. So that especially with adult children, it's great to be able to get their input and have them be supportive. But if they're not supportive, that throws a wrench into the whole works. Rod says younger children may withhold their true feelings. Mine did. As adults, they are way more direct about how they feel. I don't know if they are harder to win over, but they might be more reserved. Well, and there's a lot of truth there. There are so many ins and outs, especially dating with younger children, that if there can be another problem that if you really like somebody, you start bringing them around. And as a general rule of thumb, I never recommend bringing anybody home for the first 6 months. You've got to make sure that you're on a solid footing with somebody, and before introducing him to your family, especially around younger children, children can develop very strong attachments to somebody. And if you're dating somebody for a month and start bringing them home, they start developing an attachment to who you're dating. And if it doesn't work out, it not only are you grieving, but they're grieving, because they just lost somebody else in their life. So you got to be very careful about who you bring around and how often. And again, as a general rule of thumb, I like 6 months. To check out and see if it's going to work. Let's see, where am I here? And let's see. Terry says, my kids have no clue when or if I date until I actually find someone I feel can be find someone I feel can be long term. Is this wrong? They know I'm in the dating realm. I just don't share random men with them. No, I think that's absolutely correct, Terry. I think that's really wise. And that's the same thing that I've done with not only my daughter, but I've also done with my best friend's daughters. I never introduced anybody I was dating to my best friend's daughters, because my best friend and I consider each other, for lack of better terms, brothers from another mother. And I wanted to present a solid, good, a good impression with the girls, and not that I was ashamed of anybody that I dated, but I didn't want them to see, especially in my early years of dating, I didn't want them to see any revolving door of women. Because there can be so many one and done dates, or short term, 2, 3, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is, very short term relationships. I just didn't want to share that with them. And same thing with my daughter. That's why she never knew I was dating anybody until I had a solid foundation with someone. So I think you're on track. And then when you find somebody, you think that they're a solid a solid possibility of a long-term relationship, then you introduce them. And Teresa says, how long, if ever, do the kids accept the other person? How long does it take, Teresa, to accept the other person? Is that what you're asking? I'll wait for you to respond there. And Shar says, my kids are all adults, thankfully, and that does make it easier. It does, but even with adult kids, it can be tricky because again, there can still be some landmines there. But it's awesome, Shar, if your kids are supportive and actually looking out for you. And Rod says, depends on the age. You have the opportunity to model proper dating. That's a great point, Rod. That is an excellent point. And that's why it's so hard. It's so important to be cautious about bringing people home too soon. And again, that's why I use a rule of thumb of at least 6 months, because you have to be able to form a very strong bond with somebody to be able to share your family with. And you have to make good choices, which is part of the reason that we're here talking about this every week, is making better choices. And you have to display good decision making in front of your children, because they say children more with kids, more is caught than taught. I mean, you can talk to your blue in the face, but they'll observe what you do. I mean, you can tell them to do one thing, but if you're doing another, they're going to say, oh, well, that's what mom did, so that's what we'll do. Or that's what dad did, so that's what we'll do. And that's why it's so important to make sure that when you're dating, ladies, that you're dating somebody that treats you like a lady, or treats you like a woman, treats you like a woman. And guys, same thing. You have to number one, you have to be a gentleman, and your lady has to treat you like a gentleman. So it goes both ways for men and women. You have to demonstrate the proper dating techniques to your kids, because that's really where they're going to learn most of their information, other than school or friends that they hang around with. And so we have to make the best impression possible. And that even goes for grandkids. I was just thinking, I've got grandkids. It's important for us for those of us that are older to take the grandkids into consideration. We don't want to show grandma or grandpa in a bunch of revolving door relationships. That's not a healthy display for your grandkids. They can pick up a lot of wrong messages there. And Terry says, my kids are all grown. My young granddaughter, 17, might be the only one not interested in me having another mate. Well, and that, while that's a little bit removed, it still can be a big influence. And they can still throw a big wrench into your dating life, because children of whatever age, they can make life so miserable for anybody that comes into your home, and for anybody that you're dating. That I've seen extraordinary relationships dissolve because the children, the family, the extended family, all make life miserable for the new partner. Hey, Deborah, thanks for joining in. So there's a lot of aspects when you're dating, when you have children, whether they're adult or whether they're young children or high school age. And so it behooves you to have solid conversations with your children, sharing your wants and needs and desires. And again, the conversation you have with an adult child is going to be very different than the conversation you have with somebody that, with young children, 10, 12, 11, 8, whatever their ages are. That's why the conversation has to be age appropriate. You share that you have feelings, and you have needs and wants and desires, and and again, it may take several conversations. It's not going to happen all at once. And Teresa says, everything I've done with separation, which took 3 years, and all I do is for my kids and what they think about. I want and I want a life, and it hurts when you have to live by everyone else's way. Well, Teresa, and that's where you have to put your foot down. It's not wrong to want to please people, but you can't live your life based on what other people think or what other people want, or what other people say, whether they're your kids or not. And I'm assuming I'd have to go back and scroll. Are all of your children adult children now? And I'll just kind of wait for Teresa to answer there. But yeah, if children can have their own perceptions of what went on between mom and dad, and what they see and what they think. They generally don't know the entire story. Most kids don't, and so you have to temper your comments. I never. Okay, Teresa says they are all adults. So if they're all adults, then there's only so much pleasing to them that you can do. They have to have lives of their own, and they have to learn to stop controlling yours. And that's enabling their bad behavior, so to speak. And I don't know if it's bad behavior, but if you're trying to do everything to please them, that's not a healthy lifestyle, Teresa. So it's so important to be able to live the life you want to lead, and let them live the life they want to lead. One of the things to do would be to turn the tables on them and ask them if they'd want you to start telling them what they should be doing, or who they should be dating, or who they should be married to, or start complaining about their spouse. And just ask them how they would like it and what they would do, and then have them think about it in terms of you. I don't know. I hope that made sense. Hey, Paul, thanks for joining, and glad to see you're here. Since I don't have any kids, is it wrong to limit the number of kids in seeking out a relationship? No, it's not. And it's your personal preference, and it's your choice. One of my rules is, or one of my must-haves is that if the woman that I date has children, they have to be adult children. And now getting to be 65, and typically I only date 5 years over or 5 years under. Generally, there's not going to be any young children at home, but I've experienced situations where there are grandchildren being raised in the house. So there's a lot of there are some other problems there, and as with your own personal children, you have to be careful about bringing somebody new in. You have to just be careful about them being attached. And if you're a grandparent and raising grandkids, I applaud you. That's awesome. And I've met several people that do that. And then the question becomes, do you want to help raise somebody else's children or somebody else's grandchildren? And that's going to be unique for each individual. Some of you will say yes, some of you will say no. For me particularly, I raised my daughter. She's 38, 9, almost 40, and I'm not sure that would be something that I would want to go through. But there are others of you that would just, yeah, that would be great. So the more the merrier. So no, Paul, to answer your question, no, it's not. It's not wrong. It's not selfish. These are your wants, needs, and desires, and the idea is to find somebody that meets that criteria. And if they have kids at home, or now if they're children at home, if they're adult children, it may not be as critical an issue. If they have 4 or 5 adult children, it's going to make for a very noisy Thanksgiving and Christmas. But again, it all depends on what suits your needs best. And Terry says, I've gone out with guys in their 60s that have preteens and teens. Nope, I'm done raising mine. And that's kind of the way I feel. It would have to be a really extraordinary situation, Terry, for me to want to start down that road again. I'm at a time in life, as you are, and most of us here are, that it's time for us to enjoy our lives. And although some folks just have a strong desire to be around children and raising children, and that's awesome. But for a lot of us, we've been there, we've done it, and it's time for us to move on with the next chapter. And Shar says, my kids are grown, but Al was the greatest grandpa ever to my grandkids. They adored him even over their biological grandparents. Part of what I loved about him, how he embraced my family. Just a lucky girl. Yes, you are. And pop this one in here real quick. Teresa says, I'm kidded out. I understand. And see, and that's when we're on our second or third time around, we have to understand that there are going to be extended family. There's going to be, there may be adult children. There may be grandchildren. And again, depending on how old the children are, you may still be having to deal with the ex and the ex-in-laws. So there are a lot of things that come into play, and so there's a lot of things that have to be thought about. As even dating at in your 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's not just, oh, I've met somebody. You have to look at the entire package and see if it's a good fit, and that includes looking at the family, kids. Do they have a lot of kids or grandkids, and is it going to be if they do, it's going to be a crazy, like I said, Thanksgiving or Christmas or New Year's or whatever it is. And hey, Geneva, thanks for joining in. And Geneva says, great subject. My kiddos are graduating next year, and I'm going to be 42 years old. So I really need to think about this when I'm out here dating as well. Yeah, it's congratulations on getting him raised. It's that's a huge step, and it's so important to keep in perspective uh, all these different aspects. We when we talk about dating, we kind of focus on the person we're dating, but what's the rest of the package? What's over and above the must have and deal breaker list, the four cornerstones of great relationships, the five love languages, and the chemistry. What's the other, and I don't want to use it pejoratively, but what other baggage comes along, because we all have baggage, and it has to be all part of the package, and it's an all or nothing deal. I've worked with one woman that was dating a guy that had some narcissistic tendencies, and he wanted her to leave her 16-year-old son at home alone and have her move down 2 hours away to live with him. Now, what kind of a guy would do that? That's no, that's not something. You have to be able to look out for your children and take care of them. So there are a lot of factors there. And Nancy says it's much more difficult for me. They aren't your children, so it's a challenge from many angles, if not impossible. Well, it can be, but the last woman I dated had two adult daughters, and they welcomed me into the family, and assuming that they're welcoming, but if they're not welcoming, it can make life miserable. And both of the daughters' husbands were kind and welcoming, so it made that portion of it a lot easier. So there's again, you got to look at the whole package. Had they not welcomed me in, had they been mean or non-accepting, then it would have made the whole situation a lot tougher. Um, and Nancy says different parenting styles. Steven says knowing what I want and illustrating what my boundaries are works very well for me. Our personalities, as well as we get older, show more of who we are and where we're going. It does limit the audience for finding a match. However, it's worth the wait. Absolutely. And again, it goes back to Paul's comment and a couple of the other comments that you have to set your boundaries, and whatever your boundaries are. Hey, Sharon, thanks for joining in. And that's why your must-have and deal breaker lists are so important, because those are the initial boundaries or the barriers that you set. That keep you from moving in the wrong direction. And I know I talk about it almost every week, but it's so important. It's so easy to say, "Yep, I'm not going to accept anybody with kids," but the first one that comes along that you have a really good time with, and you get along really well, and then there's the kids. If you and don't misunderstand me, there's nothing wrong with children. I love my grandchildren. I adored my ex-girlfriend's grandson. He was just a cool dude, and he's 5 years old, 6 years old. It was fun to hang around and watch. It's fun to be able to stand back with the grandchildren and watch them, and because it's a whole different perspective. When you're the parent, we're all pickier about what our kids do, and we're watching them and making sure they're not getting out of hand and acting up too much, and when you've gone through that, when you're the grandparent, it's just, let's step back, and yeah, it's not that big a deal. You recognize that that there's a different aspect to life that we've learned that our kids have yet to learn. And so when they get to be grandparents, they're going to say, yeah, it's not that big a deal. So, but hang on one second. But it's so important to test the waters, as it were, with your kids, to make and keep them apprised of what's going on. And I know a lot of people that, especially women, that don't date until after the kids are out of the house. And that's a personal choice, but you also have to remember that the kids are going to be out at roughly age 18. And I'm not saying it, if any of you have held off dating until after the kids are out of the house, or after they've graduated from high school, that's fine. That's a choice. But by the same token, is there happiness, or is there another relationship that you missed out on because you using a term that I don't want to use, but spent that time catering and taking care of and raising your children on your own. And for whatever reason, whether you didn't want to bring somebody else into the household, whether you wanted to be able to focus, or whether it just took you that long to heal and recover from your divorce, because it's recovery, and going through the divorce can be very traumatic, and then having to raise children, especially ladies, where you're the primary caregiver, that can be really tough. Especially if dad is a deadbeat, or just in some way wasn't there. But I've seen it go the other way, where mom is abusive and feeds the kids with toxic thoughts, or talks bad about dad, and it's just a nightmare. So never, ever, 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 ever do that. Your kids never deserve to be in the middle of the problems with your ex. It's just because when you start playing that game, kids start taking sides, and it may not be until years later that they start to recognize, oh, dad wasn't all that bad, or oh, mom wasn't all that bad. So it's very important to never say anything to, and I told my daughter that on very early on after my divorce. I said, your mom and I had problems, but I'll never discuss those with you. That's none of your business. It's between your mom and I'll never talk bad about your mom. And that's the way it's been. And I hope you all are doing the same thing. You can't control what your ex does, but you have to, and you do have to take the upper road, or the high road. And it's otherwise you'll end up destroying a relationship with your children, because if you start telling them, or start talking bad about your ex, even telling them just what happened, even if you're truthful, it can damage your relationship with them, because they don't understand all of the nuances of what goes on. Their emotions are not, unless they're adults in their 30s and 40s. Their emotional maturity is not at a level that understands all of the garbage that goes on with a divorce. And Geneva says, yes, that's where I'm at too. And good. And Nancy says, great topic. And let me catch Terry here. Terry says, I know some young parents that meet someone and date, and their second or third date they're meeting up with their date and kids for play dates. I cringe. Absolutely. Oh, that is just that. I can't tell you how wrong that is, and I can't agree more that is cringeworthy, because again it goes back to, especially if there's multiple kids, and if they're going to the same school, or um in some of the same classes, or it becomes really awkward if the relationship doesn't work, and all of a sudden, the friends you're hanging out with are no longer your friends, or can no longer be your friends. That's just brutal, and that's why it's so important, especially with younger kids, that you not bring anybody home until you have a fairly good feeling that this is going to be a long-term relationship. Because not only if it doesn't work, not only do you have a broken heart, the kids do too, and that's a lot of trauma for young hearts to be dealing with. And Geneva says, this past Father's Day, my kiddos recognized me, and I was just floored. I just never expected it. I'm not sure I'm following this past Father's Day. As in they recognize you as being both their mother and their father. I'm assuming, is that what you're saying? And that's awesome that they did that. If I'm assuming that's what you're talking about, that would be awesome, because you're doing the job of two people. And Deborah says, been divorced many years. I'm in a healthy place with adult kids and grands. Surprisingly, so many do not want that family element in their life, and that is true. And but it's their choice. Some people have a bit of a selfish element. They want to have you all to themselves, and when you come from a divorce and try to blend families, you can't just expect someone to abandon their family. I mean, and with all due respect, Deborah, the guys that you've dated that are like that, you've dodged a bullet, because they're very self-centered and emotionally immature. They're not able to accept. They have to be the center of their. They have to be the center of your world. And Teresa says, but you do need to consider your kids' hearts and feelings, and let them know, just because you have a man, they will always be there. They will always be there. They will always be their two biological parents. Yes, there will be, and the new man in your life will have to share that he's just there to support you. He's not there to be your kid's new dad. If things work out, then it's the kids have a bonus dad. And I've seen a lot of times where where bio dad is a jerk, and the stepdad is actually becomes the real father in raising the kids. And Geneva says, yes, both mother and father role. Yeah, that's awesome, Geneva. I think that's really cool. And Deborah says, you nailed it. Well, of course. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Thank you. Man, that would be amazing. Yeah, it would be. And change that word would to be will, to will. That will be amazing, Teresa. And you'll find that. I have faith. I have confidence in you that you will ultimately find that great guy, and everything will work out for the best for you. And it just takes effort. I've been I continue to listen to books and read books, and there's one common thread through a lot of the dating information, and it is all about numbers, and it is all about getting out there and being social. It's if you don't like online dating, as much as 40% of relationships now start online, and it's a bit easier in some respects than going out and being out often. I remember as a young man, we were out every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, and so we were very social. And I don't know that you see that. Maybe the younger folks do that, but as a I guess technically I'm a senior citizen. I never look at myself that way, but I guess I am. As a senior citizen, I just don't get out that much anymore. I went out for a cocktail, I think Saturday night, and had one drink and came home, and that's the extent of my excitement. But But my point there is, if you're seriously searching, you have to be out. You have to be seen. I was talking with a friend of mine. Her daughter is, I want to say 21, 22 years old, and she sits at home and plays video games and knits and crochets, and besides work. And she wonders why she doesn't have a boyfriend. They go to her friends' weddings and discovers that she leaves crying because everybody's got a boyfriend or everybody's getting married and she's alone. And it's a classic example of, you have to get out, you have to be seen, and you have to make it known that you're available to date. And it's, you don't have to put a sign on your forehead, "I'm available," or a target on your back, but you have to talk to people. You have to get out and create conversations or dive into conversations. And that's why I continually tell you all that you have to learn to be able to talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. If you're in a coffee shop standing in line for your favorite mocha latte or whatever it is, you need to be able to have a nice casual conversation. Maybe they're married, maybe they aren't. But you don't know until you ask. And let me get caught up here a little bit. Teresa says, so am I. I get a discount at Rose's. There you go. Ishar says, "LOL, welcome to my world." Well, almost. And Terry says, "I'm an unattended senior." I like that. And she says, "I'm out a lot, mostly with groups." And that's a great point, Terry. And I'm going to make an observation, and I'm not the only one that'll tell you this. Consider going out alone or with only one, maybe two girlfriends. And the reason being is, when you're out with a group, and even if it's other couples, it makes it harder for a guy to come up to you and say hi or to buy you a drink, because all of a sudden there's an audience, and that's the last thing we want, is an audience. We don't want all we can do is imagine the conversation that goes on before he approaches the table or after he walks away from the table. And so consider going out alone or doing it alone. I know it's more fun to go with somebody else, but sometimes it makes it easier it makes you more approachable. Let's put it that way. And the whole idea when you go out is, especially if you'd like to dance or if you'd like to meet somebody, is to be approachable. And when you have this big group of friends with you, even if it's 5 or 6, it makes it much more difficult for a guy to come up and introduce himself and get to know you. Geneva says, I went to the blues festival in my local hometown this past weekend. First time going out without someone. Had a great time, met amazing people. That's my point. There you go, Geneva. Awesome. Congratulations. And that's the whole point of this is, and I'm glad you said you had a great time and met some amazing people. You know, there may be from time to time you're going to get the creepers, but you know, if that's what you focus on, guess what? That's what you're going to find. Go out with the idea that you're going to find some amazing people to talk to. You're going to have a great time. You know, if you go out with it, oh gosh, I really don't want to do this, but if I'm ever going to find somebody, I'll have to go out. No, because you instantly walk into the event with an attitude, and you attract what you focus on. If you're focusing on the negative aspect of going out, guess what? It's going to be a crappy time. If you go out and are excited about it, and your odds are you're going to have a great time. But if you don't, well, it's another experience. You know, you can chalk it up, but don't let that keep you from doing it again. And Terry says, that's my next step, stepping out alone. Awesome. Nancy says, just had a brainstorm. There should be a group, online dating, that matches must have list with each other. Well, you know, that's I've been approached to start an online dating, but gosh, you know, there's I think in the United States alone there's like 1,500 or so, maybe even more than that, dating sites. And how do you compete? But that is an awesome idea. You know, if you can start matching, if you could start matching your must-haves. Nancy says, "Do it, Rick." And that'll have to be a little bit down the road, Nancy, if I pull that off. And I've got a course that I'm launching here in the next 90 days. So that's my big project on my plate for the next couple of months. But it's all about the numbers. It's all about getting out there, and it's all about being approachable and being presentable. And I don't. Nancy says, "Shucks." And Steven says, interesting point. My days are always about get up and smile, make or try to make anyone I meet smile. I so agree, and you do a good job of that. We actually talked on the phone, and we ended up laughing as we hung up. And finding something positive in everything and everyone I meet. Funny results. Yeah, it can be awesome. Some of it can be absolutely hysterical, and others are, you know, you're gonna scratch your head and say, oh, what the heck just happened there? Because I've had conversations and that didn't quite go over as well as I thought it would. You know, it sounded better in my head. You know, we all make mistakes like that. Terry says some of those dating sites claim to match you up, but it's not so. They use algorithms, and sometimes the algorithms are decent, and most times they aren't. And what I've found with most dating sites, the algorithms match you up with somebody that is like nobody that you would ever expect to date. It is just, I don't know how their algorithms work, but it is, though, important to look at the people that they're matching you with, and because there could be a nugget in there. And again, and like I've said so many times, you're looking for that needle in a haystack relationship, and it's you have to look in a lot of you have to pull a lot of straws out of that pile of hay. I think that's the correct term. Straws, plural. I don't know. And Terry says, "I'm like Steven. I like to make others smile." Yeah, I think that's. I used to. Yeah, exactly. That's. Everybody deserves. My old saying when I lived in Lake of the Ozarks was, "Everybody deserves a wave and a smile." And you would be surprised the impact that has on somebody. You're walking by somebody. How often do you smile when you make eye contact with someone? It should be 90 to 100% of the time. Regardless of what mood you're in, if you put a smile on your face, your mind says, "Hey, he's smiling, or she's smiling. There's got to be something to be happy about." It's just it's a natural. It's it's a natural upper, for lack of, that shows how uppers and downers. That shows how long I've been around, and I'm sure they don't even use that term anymore. But just to see somebody else smile, we all should be in that mood. And wow, look at how this conversation turned from dealing with dating and children to getting out and dating and putting a smile on somebody's face, and not necessarily in that order. So anyway, we're about at the top of the hour, and I think it's just about time to wrap this puppy up for another week. And I appreciate you all being here. This was an awesome conversation. And Stephen, thanks for joining in for the first time. He's a buddy of mine, and I'm glad you participated today, as well as everybody else. Paul and Nancy, and I'm going to forget somebody. Terry and Geneva and Teresa. Let's see, Deborah. Who am I missing? Sharon. And did I say Nancy? I hope I said Nancy. And who else? But anyway, Shar. Yeah, there you are. And thank you all for being here. This conversation zipped by, and it's just amazing. You guys are awesome, and this is why I do it. Though I hope that you're getting value out of this. That you're seeing the value of making smarter, wiser decisions about the people you date and the relationships that you get into. That's the whole point, and that's the whole reason I do this, is because I learned the hard way, and I want to help you all learn from, not only from my mistakes, but the mistakes or the comments of others. It did my heart good last week and Rod, I'm sorry, I left you out there. It did my heart good when Geneva had an aha moment, and that was really cool. And it was because of all you guys. So that's why this is such an awesome group, and I so appreciate you all being here. And have a great and blessed week, everyone. Have a safe 4th of July. I will be off I think the 4th is on Monday, so I will be off, but I will see you in 2 weeks. And we'll get back together then for a Monday Mastery. And in the meantime, everybody be safe and keep those pets safe and away from the fireworks. And enjoy your long weekend next weekend. In the meantime, if you have questions or suggestions for topics, send them to me, and I will. I'll make sure that we ask those questions. So anyway, have a great and blessed night, everyone. I love you guys, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.